All right, so Operation Midnight Hammer. You might have heard about this. It's made a few talking points across the media the last few days, and I know a lot of people have dove deep into what's going on here. Today, we're going to hit some of those highlights to recap, just in case you've been living underneath a rock, which is impressive that you've survived given the fact of what Operation Midnight Hammer was capable of doing and did. We're going to talk about the E-7 Wedgetail. That's the chopping block, as well as the F-35 is making some cuts for fiscal year 2026. We're getting the Lowdown back going again. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. I've been working on other projects for the podcast. So that being said, let's get into it, and we'll talk about Operation Midnight Hammer, as well as what's going on with the E-7 Wedgetail, as well as the F-35 program, because again, there's some significant updates happening in both those arenas. So let's jump into Operation Midnight Hammer. We'll hit a recap of what's happened with that. But first, if you're not a Lowdown subscriber, make sure you click the link down below in the description, and you get this newsletter free each and every week. That's my goal. And it's everything that's happening in defense and aviation, things that I find interesting that if you like this type of stuff and you're watching it, you'll probably find interesting as well. So check out the newsletter. You can click the link down below, sign up. It's free. And then there'll be some back and forth with the automation. Make sure you're not a robot. And then we're off to the races there. So check that out. So real quick, here's the recap of the last few days of the U.S. executing Operation Midnight Hammer, which was a massive strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. This involved 125 plus aircraft, B-2s, Tomahawk missiles, cyber, space, and everything in between to make this mission happen. From the get-go, what I think is really impressive is in today's age with the plane spotters via websites like FlightAware, it is tough to just cover up movements. And we saw this occurring over last weekend with all the tankers flowing eastbound to Europe and the Middle East. Everyone and their brother was tracking it. But the deceptive part was the 4 tankers that took off the next day, flew overhead Whiteman Air Force Base, home to the B-2, and flew westbound. A deceptive tactic to make sure that these B-2s would not be noticed, or the primary B-2s, 7 of which were not noticed as they flowed eastbound. Something that was not necessarily an issue 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now there's always operational security concerns, but in today's age with an iPhone or an Android, God forbid, you can quickly track a plane anywhere in the world. So I'd say a tip of the hat of factoring that into the mission planning. Now, obviously the B-2 guys, not only worry about stealth, but they're worried about the operational security piece. I think a textbook execution there, because everyone was biting off on the 4 B-2s that were flying westbound, heading most likely Diego Garcia or wherever they might have been going to kick this thing off. But here's the thing that's truly mind-blowing, and it's the premeditation that went into this mission planning. Now, there are operational plans to go to war, go to combat for regions all across the globe. We have a plan. Now, this is something that you might have thought like, hey, as things are heating up, maybe we really need to start thinking about this plan, a year or so ago. But this plan was in the works, according to General Kane, since 2010. So 15 years. Think about that. 15 years of intelligence gathering, target analysis, developing the very weapon needed for this job, the GPU-57. In yesterday's briefing, this is where General Kane got specific and highlighted 2 Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers, DTRA officers, who were laser focused on this task. They had spent the last 15 years locked away in some windowless building, studying everything that occurred at this Bordeaux nuclear site. All administrations changed, leadership changed. These 2 officers were dedicated to analyzing everything that went into this target set. They studied all the material that went out, went in, the equipment that went in to conduct analysis. They actually built the picture of what was going on inside this site. Realizing that we did not have a capability to take it out, brought about the evolution of the GPU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, specifically designed for the B-2 and carrying out this mission. It wasn't about just developing another massive bomb. We've had those before. We do have those. It was about developing a bomb with a specific capability, pinpoint accuracy to take out a specific target set. Now, General Kane also highlighted the fact in this briefing the incredible operational security that went into this. And today's hyper-connected world, again, where everyone has connectivity at their fingertips and can see incredible amounts of data, keeping this under wraps was an incredible feat just in itself. It was a master class in the 21st century when it comes to information warfare, and again, protecting the operational security of this mission. So again, I think it's incredible. We had 2 individuals whose, I would say, without knowing them, that's probably their life's work, to bring this to fruition and make it happen. And it's such a level of detail with incredible accuracy, not only from the studying, but coming up with a operational solution to solve this problem is pretty incredible. Now, with that being said, we got some storm clouds brewing over some next generation aircraft. And the first up that we're going to talk about is the F-35. At this point, it probably doesn't surprise anyone that the F-35 has, a few problems. It's had them along the way. Now, we've talked about it on the Lowdown, the TR-3. This is the technology refresh, the next version of the technology refresh, upgrading the F-35 with enhanced operational software as well as other capabilities. It ran into some significant roadblocks last year, and it's delayed the program even more. And so they've announced that the F-35A procurement has been cut basically in half for fiscal year 26, going from about 44 jets in the initial plan down to just 24. And they're citing the reasons for these cuts because of the TR-3 delays. So the jets have been delivered with the TR-3 software, which is not fully mission capable, or maybe just as we're recording this, is starting to become fully mission capable. They've basically been operating with a caveat saying, hey, it gets pretty good, but it's not combat good enough. So they've slashed that, which is not a good thing anytime you're cutting procurement programs. Ultimately, all these TR-3 delays has delayed TR-4, which will be when the F-35 is really in the beast mode with its massive modernization efforts to get it up to the next level. Delays now in TR-3 and cuts with TR-3, we'll see what that does for Block 4 and the next generation when it comes to the F-35. So if cutting that F-35 wasn't enough, the Air Force has also put on the chopping block the E-7 Wedgetail. So the E-7 Wedgetail, this is one that's been used by our partners for airborne command and control. We're procuring the E-7 to replace the E-3, which has been around for decades. It's old. It needs modernization. The E-7 is based on a 737 platform using a MESA radar, electronically scanned arrayed radar, taking it to the next level. However, now we're saying that it's not survivable in a high-end fight. So we're going ahead and reduce it and focusing that energy and money towards figuring out space-based capabilities. This kind of piggybacks have been following along. Remember, we've been procuring a new rescue helicopter since I joined the Air Force in 2007. And finally, it was announced with the HH-60 Whiskey model, replacing the HH-60 Golf model. I think the original buy was somewhere around 122, 124 aircraft. And after the first year, the Air Force immediately slashed that down to 70, which again, survivability being one of those main focal points, as well as some other things that go into it. But nonetheless, the battlefield's changing. We talk about that and continue to see that. All right, and with every Lowdown, we have a thread of the day that's built in there, and it would only be appropriate that we did the GBU-57 this week. So if you're curious about it, check out the Lowdown newsletter, and you can learn more about the GBU-57 and all of its massive awesomeness there. It's a quick down and dirty this week. I'd be curious to hear your comments about the F-35 and the E-7 moves that are happening now. So you can drop those comments down below. Let me know what you think about it, and we'll see you next week.